I'm telling you, being a leader is a huge responsibility. You cannot lead into greatness with small-mindedness. You cannot go forward with your feelings on your sleeves. You got to be able to feel your emotions and still control them. We all have them, but you cannot be controlled by your emotions and be an effective leader. Many times when God starts training you, he trains you with trouble, exposing you to various degrees of frustrating situations and then critiquing your response. See, some people don't have that back end. Critiquing your response so that you can learn how you should have handled this particular situation. Have you recognized God in your situation? Or are you so practical, and are you so busy dealing with man and dealing with processes and dealing with budgets and dealing with facts and dealing with figures and dealing with the principal at the school and dealing with the problem down at the hospital and dealing with this and that or the other, that you don't know that there is a spiritual dynamic to winning? I am not saying that you should do nothing except pray. In fact, it drives me crazy to hear people tell you, just pray, spin around 7 times and throw $5 over your head and God's going to bless you. It drives me crazy because it makes you think something that is not real. You have to get engaged and you have to do something in order to win. Faith without works is dead being alone. Whenever Jesus showed up in another form, they didn't recognize him. And when you keep doing new things, God keeps showing up in new forms. That God could use somebody that wasn't a missionary, that wasn't an evangelist, that God could use somebody who wasn't even a Christian to bless you and to speak a word into your life, that God can use your enemies, that sometimes God speaks through your children, that sometimes God will speak to you through a commercial, that sometimes God will speak to you through people that you would never think possible, and they're not open to new experiences. And whenever God does something fresh, they go back to something old. And so they have a Moses mentality of wandering around a mountain that's safe rather than to have a contemporary, ongoing experience with God. How many of you are facing new challenges? New challenges is a sign of progress. It's a sign of going into another dimension. But don't expect your old ideas about God to show up in your new situation, because the God that you need in the storm is not the God that you needed in Gennesaret. He may come to you walking on the water and he may look like a ghost, but don't be afraid of him, because God does show up in other forms. That means I'm going to show up in a new way. And you got to be ready to receive me as I take you into a new area. And so come on, you like this, because now you're in the boardroom and you can't be in the boardroom to fall down the floor talking in tongues. I may need to whisper in your ear, and I may not come complete with a dance and a shout. I may need to be able to navigate you through a person in the workplace. I may need to be able to speak in your ear in a way that is calm and quiet, and I don't have time to hit your push buttons, your pulse buttons, your familiar buttons in order for you. You've got to recognize my voice even when I show up in another form. Here's my issue. Joshua's down there fighting. And he's winning. He's winning. But he doesn't know that he's winning because Moses is up on the hill holding up his hands. See, some of you think you're winning because you're such a good fighter. But you're not winning because you're such a good fighter. You're winning because somebody's in a secret closet praying for you, causing you to prevail over your enemy. The thing that you are up against right now is not about you. Now, the battle is not yours. It belongs to God. That doesn't mean that you don't have to show up for the fight. It just means that ultimately the victory that you seek is not your victory. It is the victory because God has a purpose in you getting the victory over this situation. It is not you that's getting the victory. It is God that's getting the victory. And you're not using God to get your victory. God is using you to get his victory. And as soon as you get that straight, you can get down to business. That the battle you fight tomorrow necessitates that you spend some time in the presence of God, being directed and motivated and filled and charged with the mind of God, how to get the victory on tomorrow. I'm here to have an encounter with God. Speak to my heart. Speak through the music. Speak through the song. Speak through the word. Speak to me. You will not beat this devil with what you can do. You will not be able to tap into your skill set and your core ability and what you did before and get the victory, because when you do that, there is no room in your life for God. You must have an encounter with God.